Hey guys, welcome to the Entrepreneurship Center. My name is Desmond and I appreciate you joining us right here in Chiang Mai, Thailand. Today we're going to talk about how to find the perfect price for your product or service. Price by book definition is the amount required for something given. Now here's the big problem. Most of us are pricing our products and services completely incorrectly. In fact, we're doing that to such a detriment that oftentimes we're not even selling what it is that we have. We have excess inventory just sitting, at our shop. We've got all this energy or, labor skills or, mental skills that we can transfer to someone else, and it's not being transferred because we're not pricing it correctly. And pricing it correctly doesn't mean that it needs to be lowered. Sometimes prices can need to be higher, right? But sometimes they do need to be lowered. But in this video, what we're going to cover is a 6-step method that basically just entails asking people that fit within your buyer profile, that fit within your market, just asking them what they think. But we're going to ask them what they think after we've already built a controlled environment in which they have to give us the right answer. So let's get right into step number one. Step number one is defining your cost. Your cost is something that you have to give up to get something, right? There's two components in which a cost could be assigned. Number one is your time. Number two is materials. Now, from a time standpoint, I find that this is something that's kind of elusive for all of us because it's intangible. It's not normal for us to assign a dollar amount, right, to our time unless we're going to work a job for someone. But you must assign what I call a cost floor to your time. And essentially, that's a cutoff point in which you say that, hey, I'm not going to do this thing for someone else unless I'm at least getting this, right? And many of us have actually thought about that and said that in their mind. Like, if someone, asks us to come help them move and, we're like, okay, well, how much are you going to pay me, right? And you already know in your mind what the minimum you're going to take is. If someone lowballs you on that without asking you kind of what your price would be, then you're automatically going to say no, right? So we kind of do it, but we don't really do it normally with our products and services, and definitely not with our time. So you must establish what a cost floor is. Again, that's something, that's a cutoff point in which you say, I'm not doing that. I'm not wasting my time there because my opportunity cost is too great, or I know my value is much more appreciated somewhere else. Now with materials, it's a little bit different because you don't really control the origination of those materials. You don't really control the price. The best you can probably do on materials is actually try to negotiate the price down, or maybe to buy in bulk, to drop the price a little bit lower. But you're not in control 100% of the actual cost of that material, but you must understand it and assign it to your variable costs when you're trying to understand your break-even points or the cost of your product or service with the cost floor, right? Sometimes a cost floor could actually include just time or just materials or a hybrid of both. I won't go into the hybrid because that's a little bit more complicated, but what do you got to remember here? Assign a cost floor because that is going to be the minimum point at which you can actually create a price. Number two, establish a range. A range is an area of variation between upper and lower limits. An area of variation between upper and lower limits. Why would we establish a range when we're talking about pricing? Well, I'll tell you why. We need to understand, okay, what's the minimum I could sell for and what's the maximum that the market would buy for? By default, when you have those 2 points and they line up, guess what that is? That's a range. And this is the area of variation in between. That moves me to step number 3, which is we need to create incremental blocks. These incremental blocks are going to make it easy for you to ask your marketplace and execute the exercise that we're going to go through so that they can tell you yay or nay, right? So you have to create these blocks. My recommendation, for example, let's say that someone is selling jewelry and it costs at a minimum $20 for them to produce a necklace, let's say. And let's say that, I ask that person and say, hey, what's the maximum you think the market would pay for this? And they say $80. We've got the range now. It's $20 to $80. My recommendation is to create incremental blocks that are evenly spaced out. So just pick a dollar amount and just stick with that each time. So, my recommendation in this example would be to pick a $10 incremental block. So you go 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80. Now, you may be saying, okay, well, where is that applicable? Why? That doesn't really make sense. I'll tell you where it makes sense. Because now you're going to assemble a test group. You're going to assemble a group of people that you know, and oftentimes it's even better if you don't know them because there's no relationship at all, and they're going to tell you the absolute truth, especially when it comes to giving up their money. You're going to assemble this test group, but you're going to tell the test group, hey, look, I want to get some feedback from you about the pricing of my product, but I want you to know that I'm not going to sell this to you. I just want to know that if you were to buy something like this, what is the maximum that you would give up from a currency standpoint so I can better understand how to price my product in an unbiased way. Now, step number 5 is I want you to execute the exercise. Now that we have defined our cost floor, now that we've established a range, now that we have created incremental blocks to go by, now that we've assembled a test group, now what we want to do with each person in the test group is we want to start asking a series of questions or play the little pricing game, as I call it. So here's how you're going to approach them. You may say, hey, Jamie, I have a few questions I want to ask you, and this is going to be like in the format of a game. Would you like to play? She's going to say yes. And then here's the rules of the game. You tell her that you're going to ask her price points for the product or service that you're selling. So in this case, it's jewelry. And she needs to say yes or no at each price point as quick as possible. So let's go through the exercise. Let's say I'm the one who's creating the jewelry and I'm asking Jamie. I'd say, hey, Jamie, would you buy this for $20? Yeah, absolutely. Perfect. Would you buy this for $30? Yeah, definitely. Hey, would you buy this for $40? Yeah. Okay, now let's stop right there. If you hear a change in the tonality and a hesitation, you must understand that's your first friction point. That's your first price ceiling, as I would say. It may not be the full ceiling, but you're entering that range. Now, let's say I ask Jamie to buy it for $50, and she says, yeah, I'd buy it. Okay, now you're getting closer and closer to where you need to be, and you're not even anywhere close to that $80 max ceiling that you had already established in your range. So if I asked her again, okay, well, what about $60? No, I'm not buying that for $60. Okay, so you know very clearly that $60 is the max, and most likely it's probably a little bit closer to that 50, maybe even that 45 in this particular example, because you heard there were 2 times in which I hesitated to give price. So now you actually have a real range versus the projected range. Your projected range was $20 to $80, but the real range is actually $40 to about $55. Then it's up to you to kind of figure out where to pick the price there. Now, if you really want to get laser focused on the price, then what you want to do is ask another 9 or 10 people that are in your market that are not going to buy from you, but that would buy something like this. And then you want to ask them the same question. Then you want to tally the data and you want to execute step number 6, which is to use the mean pricing. So if the average person gave you, they kind of stopped around that $50 mark, then if you average that across everyone else and it came to be true around $50 or $45, now you know what the actual market pricing is. So in summary, this is how you find the perfect pricing. Step number 1, define your costs, time and materials. One or the other or both together as a hybrid. Number 2, you want to establish a projected range. Number 3, you want to create incremental blocks. Number 4, you want to assemble a test group that is representative of the people that you would actually sell to. Number 5 is you want to execute the exercise or play the pricing game. And then number 6 is you want to use the mean pricing as the output to guide you for the final pricing for the marketplace. My name is Desmond. Thank you so much for watching us here at the Entrepreneurship Center on how to find the perfect pricing for your product or service, and we'll see you in the next training video.